Ever feel like you're running a marathon,
Yeah.
but the finish line just keeps moving further away?
Haha. Yeah.
That's kind of what work-life balance can feel like sometimes,
Hmm.
or maybe the lack of it, I guess.
Right.
So today we're going to really um, dive deep into this, this whole work-life balance thing. We're using this article from Health Direct as our guide. It's an Australian health advice website.
Okay.
They've got, some pretty standard tips and tricks, but we want to like go beyond those,
Yeah. Yeah.
get to the stuff that really makes a difference.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's, something that everybody knows is important, but like, actually achieving it, that's the hard part.
Exactly.
And like, what happens when you don't get it right?
Yeah.
It's not just, feeling tired. It can be serious, health problems, relationships, even your career, like long term.
It's almost like this pressure cooker.
Right.
Like everyone's just expecting you to be on all the time.
Yeah.
The article even says over 13% of Australians are working 50 plus hours a week.
Wow.
That's a lot of time at work.
Yeah.
Like, how is there even time for anything else?
It makes you think. And
Yeah.
they say it's mainly young men, full-time workers. It's almost like society's saying work, work, work now, rest later. But like, what if later never actually comes?
It's true. And it's not even just about the hours, is it? There's this expectation to be amazing at everything, at work, at home, with your partner, your friends. Like, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
And I always wonder, like, where do casual workers even fit into all of this?
Yeah.
I mean, they've got unpredictable schedules. Maybe they're worried about money. Like, how do they even start?
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. And the article mentions it, but it's worth, really thinking about. Work-life balance is different for everyone, right?
So true.
Those differences, like, they really matter.
Yeah, they do. And I like how the article talks about, like, all the ways work impacts us. It's not all bad, right?
Right.
They talk about routine, purpose, connections with people.
Yeah.
Work can actually be a good thing. Like, what about you? What are the good parts of work for you?
Um, I think for me, it's problem solving. I really enjoy that. Like digging in, trying to find solutions, it's stimulating, keeps me going.
Yeah.
But I also have to like watch out for the downsides, the times when work starts like taking over everything.
Right. And the article calls those the negatives of work.
Yeah.
And they can get pretty bad. Like if you feel isolated or like you're not valued or someone's always micromanaging you, I mean, that can turn a good job into a total nightmare really fast.
And we can't forget about always being connected, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like expecting you to answer emails 24/7.
Yeah.
It can really drain you and it like blurs the line between work and your personal life.
Yeah.
That's a recipe for burnout. And burnout, like, that's serious. It's not just being tired. It can really mess you up, like mentally and physically. It can hurt your relationships, like even your ability to just function.
It's like it sneaks up on you.
It does, yeah.
You don't even realize it's happening
Yeah.
until it's like too late and you're completely fried. The article, they describe burnout as feeling like you're always exhausted, dreading work, and feeling, just overwhelmed all the time. It can be scary when you think about it. Really shows you how important it is to get this whole work-life balance thing right.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's where the Health Direct article, their tips, like, they come in handy. I mean, they're not, like, revolutionary or anything, but they do give you a starting point, a way to actually do something.
Yeah.
But I think we can, like, go deeper than the article, really unpack what it actually means to, have a good work-life balance.
Yeah, I like that. Let's get past the generic advice and get real. The article starts by saying, know your values, which sounds, simple enough.
Yeah.
But how do you even like figure out what your values are?
Right.
And then once you know them, how do you make sure your job fits those values?
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't always just happen magically.
It's a process for sure. It takes, some real honesty with yourself, some reflection, like what really matters to you? What are your non-negotiables?
Right.
And once you know those, you can start to see, does your job actually support those values? Or does it like go against them?
That's interesting. And what if it's like a total mismatch?
Yeah.
Do you just, I don't know, quit your job and hope for the best?
Not necessarily. Sometimes it's about, maybe changing things up a bit in your current job or
Yeah.
looking for opportunities within your company that, are better fit.
Okay.
It might even just be talking to your manager. Tell them what you want and see if there's any room to grow,
Yeah, that makes sense. Be proactive, take charge, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't always have to be some massive life change. Sometimes it's the little things that can make the biggest difference.
For sure.
But what about people who are like already struggling with the day-to-day?
Like, knowing your values is great, but how do you actually find the time and energy to do something about it when you're already stretched so thin?
That's where that next tip comes in. Time management.
Ugh.
It's a skill, really. Takes practice. It's
Yeah.
not just about making to-do lists. It's more about choosing how you spend your time and energy.
Oh.
Like being deliberate about it.
You know what always gets me? Like those quick checks of social media. I just want to see what's going on. But then, like an hour later, I'm still scrolling. How do you even avoid that?
Mindfulness is key, I think. Just like noticing how easy it is to get distracted. That's the first step.
Okay.
The article mentions like time blocking, where you schedule specific times for specific things. Have you ever tried that?
I have, but it's tough, you know?
Yeah.
It's like my brain just wants to do a million things at once.
It takes a lot of discipline.
Yeah.
But even little things like setting aside dedicated work time, minimizing distractions then, that can make a huge difference. Okay, I can try that again. What about delegating? The article mentions that too.
Yeah.
But how do you delegate without like just dumping your work on someone else?
It's about giving people the power to do things, not just
Yeah.
giving away your responsibility.
Okay.
It's finding those tasks that, someone else could do. You give clear instructions, you support them, you trust them to do a good job.
Yeah, I see what you mean. There's a theme here, I think. Intentionality. Like being mindful about our choices.
Yeah.
How we manage our time, how we delegate. But what about those things outside of us? Those pressures that make it hard to have balance, like the never-ending emails and messages.
Yeah.
It feels impossible to disconnect.
And that's where setting boundaries comes in.
Setting boundaries. Sounds easy enough,
Yeah,
but like in real life, it's hard.
it is.
It can feel impossible. Like, where do you even begin?
It's a real challenge, especially these days, right? Like, we're always connected.
Yeah.
The article talks about setting limits on your work hours, which makes sense
Right.
in theory. But, like, what if your boss expects you to be available all the time?
Exactly. How do you say no to your boss when they email you at like 10 p.m. on a Friday?
Right.
It'd be career suicide.
It's a tough one. I think it shows how important it is to, communicate openly. Maybe your boss doesn't even realize what they're doing.
Yeah.
Having a conversation about, like, what the expectations are and setting clear boundaries around work hours,
Okay.
that could be a good start.
Yeah.
It might feel awkward, but it's better than, like, silently resenting them for those late night emails.
I've always struggled with saying no,
Yeah,
especially at work. It feels like you're letting people down or that you're going to get fired.
it's a common fear.
Any tips for setting boundaries without, like, being a jerk about it?
I think it's all about how you say it, Frame it positively. Instead of, I can't do that, try saying something like, I'd love to help, but I'm already busy with other projects. Could we maybe schedule this for next week? You're being assertive, but not aggressive,
That's a really good tip, actually. I'm going to try that. The article also mentions setting boundaries with technology,
Mm-hmm.
which, like, even harder, right?
Oh, yeah.
Phones are basically part of us now.
I know.
How do you disconnect without feeling like you're missing out on everything?
I think it starts with just being aware of, like, how technology affects us.
All right.
Do you get anxious when you're away from your phone for too long?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Do you check your email even when you're supposed to be relaxing?
All the time.
Noticing those patterns is the first step.
My phone is like attached to my hand. I freak out if I can't find it.
It's like an addiction, right?
Totally. But like, how do you actually break those habits?
I think small steps are the way to go.
Okay.
Like, set aside specific times to completely disconnect.
Okay.
Maybe an hour before bed, or a whole Sunday morning without tech, or even just during meals.
Yeah.
Start small and then slowly increase it as you get more comfortable.
I like that. It's like taking back those little moments for ourselves, right?
Exactly.
We're so busy online. We forget to just, like, be present.
And that actually connects to the next tip, enjoying your work. I know it sounds kind of idealistic, but I think it's really important to find some satisfaction in what you do.
Yeah.
We spend so much time at work, right?
Okay.
If it's always stressful, it's going to affect everything else in your life.
And this is where it gets interesting.
Mm-hmm.
The article knows not everyone loves their job,
Right.
but it says we should try to make it more enjoyable, even if it's not our dream job.
Yeah, and that might mean getting creative, Maybe try something new within your current job, or take some professional development courses.
Okay.
Or even explore side hustles, things you're actually passionate about.
The article even suggests thinking about a completely different career if your current job is making you miserable.
Mm.
That's a big step.
It is, yeah.
How do you know when it's time to, like, actually make that change?
It's a very personal decision.
Yeah.
But there are some signs, like Do you dread going to work every day? Do you feel like your job is sucking the life out of you? If those feelings stick around, even after you've tried to make things better, maybe it is time for a change.
It's like you have to listen to your gut, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we stay in jobs for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
We're scared of change, or we need the money, or we're just stuck in a rut.
Yeah.
But if it's really hurting you, maybe it's time to think about what's really important.
Exactly. And talking to a career counselor or someone who can give you good advice,
Mhm.
that can be really helpful when you're trying to make that decision. It's all about figuring out what you really want and what fits your values.
Okay, so then the article talks about reviewing your finances.
Yeah.
I have to admit, that one kind of confused me.
Uh-huh.
What does money have to do with work-life balance?
It is an interesting angle, right?
Yeah.
But it makes sense when you think about it. Like, how much money we have often determines how much we work, and that affects how much time and energy we have for everything else.
So it's about, like, questioning what we actually need versus what we just want.
Yeah.
Right. Like, do I really need that fancy car or that designer bag?
It's about looking at your spending habits and asking yourself, do these things actually make me happy?
Right.
Maybe you'd be just as happy with a cheaper car or a used bag. It's about shifting your focus away from stuff and more towards experiences and things that actually fulfill you.
I like that. It's seeing money as a tool, not
Yeah.
like the end goal.
Exactly.
It's using money to create the life you want, not letting it control you.
And maybe by spending less, you can work less. You know, that frees up more time for things you actually value.
Yeah.
Like spending time with people you love or doing hobbies or just relaxing.
It's about taking back control. Instead of feeling trapped by money,
Exactly.
you can choose to live differently, create a life that makes you feel good.
That leads perfectly into the next tip, nurturing your relationships.
Okay.
The article really emphasizes how important it is to have strong social connections.
Yeah.
It's good for your mental and emotional well-being.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
It's about putting those relationships first, making time for the people you care about.
This is a big one for me. I'm a really social person. I need to connect with people.
Yeah.
But it's so easy to let those relationships slip when you're busy with work.
Oh.
I can't tell you how many times I've had to cancel plans or rush through conversations because I've got too much work.
I think we've all been there.
Yeah.
But we have to remember those connections are so important. They give you support. They make you laugh. They make you feel like you belong.
Yeah.
All those things help you deal with whatever life throws at you. The article gives some good practical advice for making time for people, even when you're busy.
Like what?
Like scheduling phone calls, planning stuff to do on the weekends, even just having a meal together.
Great.
It's about being intentional, right? Instead of just hoping it'll happen, actually make time for it.
Instead of letting it happen by chance, we
Right.
can make it happen like on purpose.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be some big elaborate thing. Sometimes it's the small things that matter most.
Yeah.
A quick text to check in, grabbing coffee together, or just really listening when a friend needs to talk.
Right.
It's about showing up for the people you care about, even when you're busy.
And speaking of busy, the article then goes on to talk about, like, our health.
Yeah.
Something we all forget about way too often. It really stresses how important it is to take care of ourselves both physically and mentally.
It's so true. Our well-being is like the foundation for everything else. If you don't take care of yourself, it's impossible to have any balance in your life.
They talk about sleep, exercise, eating well. We all know we should do those things.
Right.
But it's hard when you're stressed and overwhelmed.
It's like the classic put on your own oxygen mask first analogy.
Right.
You can't help anyone else if you're not taking care of yourself first.
Yeah, and I know I'm way more productive and less grumpy when I'm getting enough sleep and eating healthy.
Exactly.
But it's so easy to fall into bad habits when work takes over.
Yeah.
How do you stay motivated to prioritize your health when everything else feels so urgent?
It's about changing how you think about it. Don't think of self-care as a luxury or something you only do when you have time. Think of it as a non-negotiable, like brushing your teeth or paying your bills.
I like that analogy. It's shifting your perspective.
Yeah,
Taking care of yourself isn't selfish, it's essential.
exactly. And you don't have to make huge changes.
Right.
Start small. Take a 15-minute walk at lunch, cook healthy meals on the weekend, set a regular bedtime,
Okay.
build those healthy habits into your life one step at a time.
And speaking of steps, the article also mentions downtime, which is basically just, giving yourself permission to relax and do things you enjoy.
It's about stepping away from everything, from all the demands, and just being.
But that's tough, isn't it?
It is.
It's hard to not feel guilty about taking time for yourself when you have so much to do. But the article says downtime isn't a luxury. It's actually necessary to prevent burnout and keep you healthy.
Exactly. It's about letting your mind and body rest and recover, so you have the energy to, deal with everything else.
The article says we should schedule regular time off for ourselves.
Yeah.
Just to relax and do things we enjoy.
Mhm.
Read a book, go for a walk, take a nap, whatever. The point is to give yourself permission to just be without feeling guilty about it.
And disconnect from that feeling that you always have to be productive.
Yeah.
Your worth isn't about how much you achieve or how busy you are. It's okay to just exist, to rest, to recharge.
It's so easy to get caught up in that hustle culture and feel like you're always behind. But taking downtime isn't weak. It's actually smart.
Yeah, it shows that you're aware of what you need and that you're taking care of yourself.
And we all need different things when it comes to downtime.
Great for you. Yeah.
Some people like to be alone, read, meditate. Others need to be around people.
Exactly. The important thing is to figure out what works for you and then make it a priority.
This has been such a good conversation. So many practical tips for having a better work-life balance. But what about when you're really struggling? Like, those tips just don't seem possible?
Yeah.
The article says it's okay to ask for help.
That's so important. There's still this stigma around asking for help, especially when it comes to mental health. But admitting that you need help, that takes courage.
It's a sign of strength, not weakness.
Exactly. And the article actually has some really great resources and places you can go for support when you need it.
Yeah, let's talk about those resources after the break. All right, so we've covered a lot of ground, talking about knowing yourself, managing your time, setting boundaries, and even, finding ways to actually enjoy your work. But what about those times when life just throws you a curveball?
Yeah.
You burn out, things get crazy, and those boundaries, they just poof, disappear.
It happens to all of us. And in those moments when you feel like you're drowning, it's important to remember you're not alone. There's help out there.
In the Health Direct article, it does a really good job of showing you what kind of help is out there. I was surprised actually by how much there is and how easy it is to access.
Yeah, it's great to see more and more awareness around mental health here in Australia. It's not as hush-hush as it used to be, and people are more comfortable asking for help.
The article starts off by talking about some techie solutions for dealing with stress and anxiety. They mention this app, Smiling Mind, which is all about mindfulness. Have you ever used any mindfulness apps?
I have. I find them really helpful for grounding yourself, especially when your mind is racing with a million thoughts.
Yeah.
Smiling Mind is great, and it's free, which makes it accessible to everyone.
I like that they include things that are, free and easy to use. Not everyone can afford fancy therapy or coaching.
Exactly. And besides apps, the article mentions some online programs like MindSpot and This Way Up. They offer proven strategies for managing stress, anxiety, even some mild depression.
It's like having a therapist in your pocket without the big price tag. But I'm wondering, are these online programs good for everyone? What about people who aren't tech savvy or who really need to talk to someone face to face?
That's a good point. These online programs are really helpful, but they're not for everyone. If you need more personalized support or you prefer to see someone in person, the article lists some great services.
Yeah, like Lifeline. They offer 24/7 phone counseling. It's a real lifeline for a lot of people, especially when they feel like they have nowhere else to turn.
And for people struggling with mental health, Beyond Blue offers online and phone support, plus a ton of resources and information. They have specific programs for young people, families, and Indigenous communities too.
It's great that they're recognizing that, everyone's different and we all need different types of support.
They even have Men's Line, specifically for men's mental health.
It's so important to break down those stereotypes around men and mental health.
Exactly.
Encourage them to ask for help when they need it.
I think all these resources show that we're finally starting to understand that mental health is just as important as physical health.
Yeah.
Asking for help is a good thing. It's not a weakness.
It's about, making it okay to talk about mental health. Creating a culture where people feel comfortable asking for help without being judged or ashamed.
And the fact that the article includes these resources alongside the work-life balance tips shows how connected everything is. It's not just about managing your time or setting boundaries. It's also about having support for those times when things are tough.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into work-life balance, I'm curious, what stuck out to you the most? What will you be taking away from this?
I think the biggest takeaway for me is that work-life balance isn't about reaching some perfect end goal. It's a journey.
Yeah.
It's always changing. You're always figuring things out, setting boundaries, making adjustments. And it's different for everyone. There's no one right way to do it.
I like that. It takes the pressure off. It's not about reaching some mythical state of perfect balance. It's about finding what works for you and being open to changing things as your life changes.
Exactly. And there will be times when you feel more balanced than others. Sometimes work will be the priority. Sometimes it'll be family or personal things. The key is to pay attention to those changes and adjust as you go.
It's like riding the waves, right?
Yeah.
And knowing when to ask for help when you need it.
Absolutely. And remember, even small changes can make a big difference. Start by trying out one or two of the tips we've talked about.
Okay.
Maybe take 15 minutes every morning for mindfulness, have one tech-free night with your family each week, or finally schedule that coffee date with a friend you've been meaning to catch up with. It's about making choices that support your well-being, both at work and in your personal life.
Love that. It's not about changing your whole life overnight. It's about those little things you do consistently that add up over time.
And that's it for our deep dive into work-life balance. We hope you learned something useful and that you have some new tools to create a more balanced and happy life.
And remember, you're not alone in this. We're all figuring it out together.